Just to start it off, if you guys want to be updated with new music, new material, I'll give you my Instagram, SoundCloud, and all that. Everything across the board is Decap Music, and it's DECAP MUSIC. So you feel free to follow me on SoundCloud, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I post a lot of beats, updates, little videos, and just anything I find inspiring for me to give. First, to start it off, I'm going to show you guys basically how I put that set together and how I did what I did, and just kind of give you guys a rundown. I'll have time for you guys to ask questions, so I can get into the fine details and help you guys if you have any questions for me. And then a little later into the session, I'm going to get into first a track that I produced for Snoop Dogg. I'm going to open up the session and kind of, get in deep, letting you know how I made it from the first moment of inspiration to the final product. And then if we have time, which I think we will, I'm going to get into a track I did that's out with Talib Kweli. So I have both of these on my desktop, and hopefully we have time for everything. And I want to, answer you guys' questions. I want to talk a little bit about, the behind-the-scenes aspects of dealing with these artists and how I came to connect with them, how I came to work with them. So first things first, I'm going to open up that set that I just performed, and as you can see right there, that's the complete set. So the first track I did is a track, I can't remember the name of it, but it's not released. I just have it for you guys. It's called The Elite, which is ironic because this is the Elite session. So basically, actually, can we switch to the push on this one? How many of you guys use Ableton? Wow. Okay, great. That's awesome. How many of you guys use push? Sweet. Cool. So I've been using Ableton since 2008, and I find that when the push came out, it kind of helped my workflow a bit, and also for live performances, in my opinion, it's the best way to go as a live user. I find it pretty incredible, and especially now with the I don't know if you guys who have the push are familiar with it, but there's a beta update out right now. It's 9.2 and allows you to use all 64 pads as drum pads. So you can trigger. I'm gonna turn that down a bit. So you can trigger drum sounds on all 64 pads. So for me, I mean, before it was only these 16 that you could trigger. And for me now it's great because I can use two hands and play. I can play the whole set all at the same time. So that's a huge improvement. And I think that's coming out like pretty soon, like next month or something. But right now you can get that in the beta version. So basically for this track, I recorded a sample and I chopped it up onto these 8 pads, and I have my kick, snare, and hi-hat on these 3 pads. So basically, it cuts off. So. And then this pad right here I have as a choke group. So I can basically cut off the sample mid-flow. So an example when that would work is, if I wanted to cut it in between my playing. So that's basically this track. So that was all free form. I didn't use any quantization or recording for that track. But most of the other tracks, I just want to start it off that way and get in the spirit of playing in the beginning of the set. So that way I can get into more intricate stuff with pre-recorded loops and all that. So actually, can we switch back to, okay. So everything I just showed you right there is on this channel strip right here. And if you look down in where the drum rack is down here, you know, the pads that you saw correspond with that. So, I mean, you know, you guys are Ableton users, so I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with, you know, the layout. So I won't get into the real beginner stuff. I'm gonna keep it a little more high level because you guys have some experience with it. So, so basically that's what I did. And moving on into the other tracks, I I launched each track in clip view row by row. And on the right side over here, um, each row I edited the launch tempo. So that first one was 176 beats per minute, and each track after that I have individual launch tempos. So, which is actually cool because I didn't know you could do that before, but for performing live sets, that's great. So if any of you guys want to know how to do that, all you do is right click right there where the launch icon is, and you click Edit Launch Tempo. And when you do that, it highlights this number right here. So the second track is 140 beats per minute. And then you can enter whatever your track is. So that way when you're doing a live set, you trigger it, it'll be the correct tempo. So when you do delays and things like that, it'll be on the beat and it won't be thrown off the beat. So the second track, you know, it just launched. I launched a beat that I had already made and imported into live. So you can see on the far left column, there's beats. And you can see it's a group, so I'm going to expand it. And this is the second beat, the one that I had just launched. And if I double click it, you see it's just an instrumental. And I did some beat repeat stuff on it and some different tricks, but in essence, I just launched a beat. And the reason I did that was because that would give me time to go and get ready for the next track I was going to play, which I play some live keys on. So up here in the red, these are the tracks so I can remember in my set, and it actually shows me all this info in the push. So I can remember what key it's in. Because in the push, you can select whatever key you want. That's why I could do all those crazy solos on the pads, because everything I play was in key. So, so basically, so for the third track, it's called Flash On, Flash Off, and I know it's in G flat minor. So even before I launch the clip, I'm gonna set the scale on the push. Actually, can we switch to the push just for a sec? Okay. So on the push, I basically I click on the push to select the track. I click scale, and I set it to the scale of the track. So in that case, it's G flat minor. So basically, then that's ready for the next track when I move into the flash on, flash off. Yes.
There's no way to automatically set it when you change the scene to change the scale?
Not yet. That's actually a good. That's some good feedback for Ableton. I'm gonna remember that. I think that's a great idea. I like that. So what he just said is there a way to automatically change the scale when you go to the next scene? I think that would be amazing personally, because that way I wouldn't have to have a track to prepare, and that could really change the dynamics of the set. Right now, to my knowledge, you have to do it all manually, but that would be real cool. So here, it looks like stairs. Each row, column, whatever, this way, what is that, row or column? I don't even know. So basically, those are the tracks that I have set default. So when I launch it, it'll play that track. So basically, I mean, the set isn't that difficult. That's kind of a pattern I followed. I launch the clip, prepare the keys, or prepare whatever I'm going to play, and then I go ahead and play it. And if you look here in the blue, that's the vocal channel. So that I have routed to input 1 on my Apogee Duet. If you guys aren't familiar with it, this is what it looks like. And I have my Shure SM7B mic, and I have it plugged in just with an XLR cable. So that way, when I do my live set, I don't have to run through a DJ mixer, all that. Literally every time I show up, this is all I need: 2 1/4-inch outputs. And what's awesome about that is, the microphone, I control that all from the push. So everything I do, all my effects, everything are on the mic. So for one of the tracks, I turned on the mic from the push. Check. And I added like a kind of muffled filter kind of effect. And I can obviously edit all that from the push. Check. So you can see it's real filtery. It gives it that kind of like melodic, muffled vocal sound, which sounds good, on some of these tracks. So I really like that to give it a kind of vibey sound. And on this, I have a beat repeat. So if I say a phrase, I can actually trigger on the beat repeat and it will loop the vocal I just did. I don't know if you guys heard it, but in certain parts, I would loop a vocal and I would turn down the pitch knob so it would start going down a semitone at a time. And I actually, half the stuff I do, I don't prepare it. Like I just go with the feeling, with the vibe of the moment. So, what you guys saw me do was all just, improvised, as far as that vocal part. So what's cool about the push is I think it kind of gives you the creativity to be real free and go with the flow of the track. So that's what I did in those parts. Yes.
Do you need to do anything to work with the latency on the mic, or do you worry about that at all?
No, because I basically, this whole session, just to let you guys know, I have it set to 256 samples, which is like not immediate, but it, check. It's not immediate, but for the effect of it, it's pretty good. It's like just a little bit of latency. So from there, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the whole set. It's real simple. I mean, what's awesome is from the push, I can control any effect that I put on any track with just a click of some buttons. And then, like, if you can see these macros here, I have them mapped to different things. Like these first 3 macros, can you guys see where the mouse is in the bottom? These first 3 macros are mapped to EQ, low, mid, and high. So if I want to cut a mid, I just have to turn the first knob on the push. And then from there, I have the beat repeat, which is right here. I have that mapped to the push too. So, yo. So basically, that's all done with the beat repeat, and I mapped all of that to 3 macros. One of the macros is repeat, which is right on the beat repeat. Another one of them is grid, so that's how you select how often you want it to repeat. So I was moving between 1/12 and a half a bar, and then pitch. And then with the pitch, when I turn it, that's when you hear my vocal going down semitones. And then the next macro is frequency. I have it mapped to an auto filter. So that's where you hear the low pass filter coming in, and it filters off the top end of the vocals and opens it up. So that's cool for parts. Like when I want to do something real background and real, kind of airy and reverby, I'll turn down the frequency on the auto filter. And then when I want to have it more bright and open, I'll open up the auto filter and have it be more present. So like when I did Who's That Knocking on My Door, I vacillated in between, having it real low pass filtered to having it open and present. And then the last knob is decay. So that is what controls whether the beat repeat continues indefinitely or if it starts fading out as it repeats. So that's basically it. Do you guys have any questions about that or anything?
Can you talk a little bit about your lead patches that you played through? Because there was a bunch
Okay.
of, especially the last one that was real like sort of vocoder-y.
Cool.
And walk us through your sound design on those.
Cool. So let me check. So the first track, what I did was I have an Arturia Mini V. So basically, that's the Arturia with a guitar rig on it. So before the guitar rig, that's what it sounds like, and after the guitar rig, it sounds like that. And when I open Guitar Rig, I have two plugins, Hot Solo and Control Room Pro, and it kind of gives it just a cool sound, kind of a guitar kind of feel to it. So once in a while, that's one thing I do. A lot of people think, oh, Guitar Rig's for guitar. That makes sense. But for me, I'll sometimes run vocals through it. I'll run synths through it, or just all kinds of sounds. So that's that. And for this, for a different track, I had also an Arturia. It's kind of a clavinet kind of sound. And this is original. It sounds like that. And then I put on a flanger to kind of give it that flanged phased kind of sound. So that's that. And then the last track that you were asking about, that's also Arturia. I think it's the same sound as that. I just did an octave lower to kind of give it that vocoded effect. So it's a clavinet, an Arturia with a flanger on it. And that's it. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
Just a quick question about, just out of curiosity, do you, some of those tracks, did you make them in like other DAWs and then put them into Ableton? Or do you use Ableton mostly as your main production, like your main software for composition?
Yeah, I use Ableton at this point for everything. I use it from the idea phase to the sequencing and even recording vocals. So everything's in Ableton. I use a lot of third-party plugins, like the Arturia is a third-party plugin, but everything's done in the live DAW. So, any more questions? Yep.
Yeah, it looked like you had like some filters going on, like another effect rack maybe on the beats or the master channel. I just wanted to maybe see cracking.
So I'll show you guys that actually. So on the master channel is pretty much exactly what I had on the vocal channel that I was showing. So you guys know about macros and all that, right? In Ableton. Okay. So what I did was I grouped an EQ3, a beat repeat, and an auto filter. The EQ3, I mapped the first three macro knobs to low, mid, and high. I mapped the fourth macro to repeat and beat repeat. That's where we got that that stutter effect when I did my vocals, that repeating of the sections. And the grid, which is the amount of time in between the loops of my vocals, and the pitch, which brought it down semitones. Then the frequency, which is the auto filter, the low pass filter. So with the beats, I don't know if you guys remember, but I brought down some of the high end in certain parts. So I turned the knob to activate the auto filter. And then decay, which is actually mapped to beat repeat, and it allows the loop section of the beat to fade out as it's looping. So does that answer your question? Cool. Any more questions? Yes.
Was this
You on the vocal, I think it was the second to last track. What were the effects you put on the vocals?
Okay, actually, I didn't go over that. Thank you for asking that. This is a plugin that I just really like. I don't know how the teachers would feel about this, but I just use an all-in-one vocal plugin. Even when I do my mixes, even when I mix for Talib, I use Talib, Snoop, E40, all those guys. Like I run it through iZotope Nectar, and it's just a real simple kind of do-it-all vocal plugin. It has EQ. It has a preamp kind of leveler, and it just sounds pretty good. It's real easy to use. Like I find that a dry signal from a SM7B or a U87 or pretty much any decent mic sounds really good going into it, and the presets are good too. With this, I just use the actual preset that when you first open the plugin, it defaults to that. So it's called Motown Power, and it just sounds good. I don't know. So what I did was I cut the low frequencies. It looks like I cut off some of the high and just pumped it. I pumped the preamp and loudness on it, and that's it. And from there, I also I added a saturator. I like my stuff real loud and present. Even though the vocal, after all the things in the chain, it didn't end up loud. I just like having the signal be kind of bricked out sometimes. So on the saturator, I set it to medium to kind of give it that present, distorted kind of feel. And then after that in the chain, I have the audio rack, which I went over. And then it looks like I added another EQ onto it, and everything else is pretty much muted out. So that's pretty much my vocal chain. Oh, and also on the return channel, I have a convolution reverb, which is in the Max for Live bundle, and I pumped the convolution all the way up on the return track for the vocals. So that's what gives it the real kind of washed reverby kind of sound. Cool. Any more questions? Yep.
What were your other return tracks?
Sure. I don't even know. So I have 4 returns. Return A is convolution reverb. B is ping pong reverb, which I have it set to 4. And after it in the chain, this is a little trick that I do. If I want to kind of turn something that's hard, because the ping pong defaults to hard stereo panning, so it gives you one in the far right and then in the far left. So what I did was I added a utility after it to kind of narrow the stereo field, and I set that to 4%. So that's like really centered. And then the next one is another reverb, but instead of set to 4, it's set to 1, so it's going to repeat faster. And then the other return is a chorus, which I didn't even use in the set, so I don't even know why it's there, honestly. So sometimes that happens. Like when you set up a set, you're gonna have a lot of big ideas, and you're gonna have tons of plugins and tons of different things, but you won't even end up using all of it. So that happens sometimes too. But it's a good rule of thumb to tone down the sessions as much as possible so you don't run into latency and all that stuff. Yes. Yep. Sure. So he asked about my computer. I just have a simple MacBook Pro Retina. It has 8 gig of RAM, so it's not the highest end one. It's actually the lower end one of the two, and it seems to run fine. I had that latency in the beginning. That's just because of ScreenFlow. It's because sometimes things interact in weird ways, but when I'm doing a set, I never have a problem. It pretty much can handle anything. So it's a MacBook Pro Retina 15-inch. It's got a 256 gig solid state and 8 gig of RAM. I think you had a question?
Yeah, could you talk about how you like order your tracks when you're putting together a set?
How I order them? Sure. Like how I decided what order they should go in? Sure. Good question. For me, I just basically, he asked how I order my tracks and how I go about ordering them. Basically, for me, I don't know how other people do it, but I just go by the energy of it. Like if I want it, if I feel like there's one track that should go after the other, I don't have like a process of like some mathematical or key or time signature thing. I simply go by just the feel. Like if one track is real hard, I might want to follow up with something even harder or something completely laid back just to kind of give it that dynamic. So the way I arrange an album or a live set, what I like to do is just my thing. I like to take the listener on a journey that, of different highs and lows and make it interesting. So I think in essence, find something in your set when you're putting something together, find something that flows and find something that feels good to you, because then that'll translate well to your audience. So I just go by feeling pretty much. So good question. Any more questions? Yes.
Did you start out as a producer, or did you ever DJ? Did you do that kind of stuff?
Well, when I was 12 years old, I got my first set of turntables. So I guess I started out as DJing, but I didn't until later do any DJ gigs. So I never really, I've never really been a DJ ever. Like I've messed around and DJed at clubs for some things in my life, but I don't consider myself a DJ at all. Like it was pretty much always producing. So yes.
When you're coming up with your melodies, do you primarily go off of instinct, or do you have a method? Like, do you take a melody and rework it 10, 15, 20 different times, come back the next day? Do you have a method, or?
Sure. So she just asked, like, when I come up with my melodies, do I have a method about coming up with different melodies? It depends. Like when I'm composing a track, a lot of times I will go based off of the feeling and the energy of the track and think about, a lot of times I'll just have melodies come into my head and I'll try to kind of duplicate that, or, different changes and things like that. But when I'm performing live, a lot of times I think the way I work as a producer or as a performer, I'll have like a range that I play in, and then within that range, I'll improvise. And then sometimes that improvisation will lead off into further improvisation and just different tweaking. And so I would say, like, just as a person, I like to just go off of improv and off of energy. So I'd say in general, I go off of the energy of the moment.
So when you use a melody in a beat, it's there, right? It stays there. So how do you choose that melody?
That is a really good question. And so if you guys didn't hear, or if it's not projecting the video, what she asked was, when I make a beat, the melody has to stay there. So how do I choose that melody? It's kind of the same process. A lot of times, like, and this is getting into kind of like the theory of how to finish tracks. For some people, because you have unlimited opportunities from the minute you open up this window right here, there'll be a tendency to get overwhelmed and not know what to put down. So I think one healthy thing to do is force yourself to finish one track every single day. So if you play something and it sounds good, don't edit it and edit it and edit it and edit it and change it. Just take that and complete it. Take your resources and complete tracks. Excuse me. It feels really good, and it'll keep you in the flow of productivity. So for me personally, I would say, if I were to say one of my strengths, it's finishing work. Like I really feel like it's important to finish work and just Start something, complete it, move on. Start something, complete it, move on. So it might not be the ultimate melody you come up with or even the best that you can do, but being in that flow of completing it will help you open up to new work. And maybe the first 10 pieces you do will be okay, but that 11th is going to be really powerful. So I would say the way that I choose that melody that stays throughout the track is just by saying, okay, it's done, and just moving on. So does that answer your question? Cool.
So in the spirit of finishing stuff, because we hear a lot here at Pure Mind, like, all these unfinished songs, and I'm totally guilty of it too. How much time do you spend after arrangement and kind of pre-production on mixdown on these like one-day tracks, for instance?
So, I mean, I don't want to mislead you guys. Like, when I'm working on an album, I can spend sometimes a whole month on one track. I'm just being honest. Like I have a single coming out next month. I spent from the end of March until pretty much this week finishing it. So it's not always like that for me. It's not always like, because I'm also a perfectionist. I like to get things down to the last detail exactly how I want it, and that's not always easy. But when I'm working on demos and different tracks that I want to release from my catalog, thank you, that I want to release from my catalog, I mean, a lot of times there'll be moments where I create a skeleton, quickly put it in. See, that's a whole nother class I could give about finishing tracks. But, just to give you guys a gist, intro, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, bridge, chorus, outro, fade out. That can be some kind of guideline. And then from there, you quickly go in and do drops and different sections, or you want to get a bass player on it. You have them come in and record it. So I think it's just a matter of, that's where it becomes kind of almost routine. Like it doesn't have to be something brilliant. It's just, you have your way, and you take the music and fit it in that mold just to get it, mix it down, and send it off to an A&R, or get it ready for your instrumental album or your performance, or get it ready for an artist you work with to write to it. So the name of the game, I feel, is getting pieces to the point where, you're comfortable with it. The mix, for me, when I work, I mix as I work. Not like in depth, but I find sound, like drum sounds that match the texture that I want to fit on the track. So I get all my sounds off the bat within the ballpark of what I want to express musically. So I think it's a good idea to start something with the mindset of finishing it that day. I think that's a good thing. Or another way of doing it is you do a bunch of skeleton tracks, meaning quick mixes of a bunch of tracks, a bunch of ideas. And then at the end of the week, you spend one day mixing down everything you did that week. So when you're doing it full time, that's another way you can approach it too. So anyone have any questions? Yes.
So some beats are just pretty straightforward all the way through, right? Same melody going all the way through, not very varied in sections, and then other beats they really build, and they have other melodies, counter melodies that come in. So when you're building a beat, do you have a specific person in mind when you're building them? And do you think in terms of chorus, 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 or do you think in terms of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge? Do you think in those terms, or do you just find that you create beats and then when a vocalist lays it down, you build more on top of it?
Sure. So I think you have a couple questions in there, so I'm going to see if I have them all. So one of them is relating to changes, like some of them repeat and some of them build more. And when I go to create a beat or composition, like what do I have in mind when I do it? And I have to actually think about that. That's a really good question. When I'm creating, again, I think if I'm making something real gritty and real aggressive, there's probably not going to be that many changes because you want to really drive that beat home. But it's so I'm gonna take another approach on that. Like I think it all depends on the moment too. Like a lot of like because the thing is you have when you're creating a track, you're starting from zero. You have unlimited possibilities to go wherever you want to go. Um, I personally feel like it's a good idea to keep it interesting and keep lots of changes. Um, so I think wherever you can bring in changes and it's natural and it sounds good, do it. But also don't make the mistake of overdoing it and doing too many changes. And you know, it all depends on what you're going for. I think a lot of new hip hop music, as an example, trap music, for example, thrives off of changes. Every 8 bars, the track is changing, and that's what keeps that style really interesting and engaging. Um, it kind of depends on the effect that you want and what you want to communicate. Don't be afraid to keep it steady and not do too many changes because that could communicate your point more than doing some changes that don't necessarily fit the moment or the energy that you're trying to convey. So I think of it as when you're producing, you're a translator of your thoughts. You're a translator of your intention, your energy, and your vibe, and what you want to communicate to your target audience. So if it requires a lot of changes, go for it. But if it doesn't, just have the discernment to know when it's appropriate and when it's not. And as for producing for artists, like when I produce tracks, like what do I have in mind? Um, it's interesting because when I started out producing and moving into like when I started doing it professionally and doing it for a living, my main focal point was producing tracks and sending them out to A&Rs and getting different artists on them. Like back in 2007 when I was living in New York City, I had a connection with an A&R at G Unit. So I was making a lot of tracks that would fit 50 Cent's album at that time and submitting them. And I found that it was a game that was it was a very difficult game to play. Like the placement game, I really commend producers that do that. I think you can be successful in it, and I have a lot of friends that are very successful in it, and I've also found some success in it. But I don't feel like that's what I want to base my career around, being a producer and pitching tracks to A&Rs and always trying to chase the next album and all those things, or build my resume up and, get to a certain point where they come to me. I think that's all good. But the way that I've been branding myself since 2013 is as a solo artist, as a live performer. Like when I make music, I'm not the behind the scenes guy anymore that's just producing the record and getting behind all these big artists and I'm listening to liner notes as producer. Like I'm not trying to do that. I want to show up and be the artist. I want to be the performer, and I also want to produce. But I feel like when you brand yourself, or this is at least what I'm doing and what I'm exploring, as I'm branding myself as a performer and as an artist, it will open up the doors for collaborations rather than just getting producer credit. Now I'm getting artist credit. And there are some artists who are starting to do that, but in the hip hop world, I feel like I might have an opportunity to start to pioneer that and bring that across the country and kind of open that idea up, because I see a lot of new producers, especially in hip hop, are playing the placement game, meaning, as I was saying, creating a track and shopping it to a label. I feel like it's a long shot, and I feel like there are better ways to go about it that give you more power in the industry. So with that said, when I'm making tracks, a lot of times I just make them simply just as a standalone piece. Like this is my art, and I want to release it to the world as it is. But because of my training in making tracks for labels, I think a lot of times artists are very comfortable with the way I arrange it, and they want to work with it how I arrange it. So it's not like I go in with the mind state anymore of producing with an artist in mind, although sometimes I do. But because I make it how I make it with my own vibe, I think that attracts artists to want to engage with them and create music with them. Yes. I am from a small town just north of Nashua, New Hampshire, just north of Boston, Massachusetts, called Nashua, New Hampshire. It's like I was just saying, it's I think the second biggest city in New Hampshire. So it was a great place, but you know, it's no San Francisco or no Boston, New York, but it was an awesome place. Nashua, New Hampshire, represent.
Did you ever go to Operation Boom at the Bahama Beach Club in Nashville?
Bahama Beach Club, that's funny. I remember Bahama Beach Club. Yeah, a little bit about Nashua. I really like Nashua. Nashua actually has a real solid hip hop base now. When I was coming up there, I always felt kind of like an outcast because I loved hip hop. I was obsessed with hip hop, and everything I did was hip hop kind of before it was a cool thing to do. And I feel like because of that, I was able to bring, you know, a real solid hip hop scene in Nashua. So it's actually a real cool city. I love that city. Thanks for asking that question. Any more questions? Cool. So I think this will wrap up the first section, and now I'm going to get right into the track I produce with Snoop Dogg, or Snoop Lion, whatever it is right now.
Very much like to thank Pyramind for hosting me here once again. I think this institution is really cool, and until I came here for the first time, I had never seen anything like it in my whole life.
What I think really separates us from other people who teach is that we are outrageously passionate about what we do, and especially in electronic music.
Since coming to Pyramind, I've discovered electronic music, and you know, San Francisco being a mecca for underground electronic music opened up so many doors for me and kind of blew my mind.
We cover everything from Absinthe to Contact. When people get to the mind-melting level, we get into modular synthesis.
Everything about native instruments, everything about Logic synths down to the finest detail. We learned it all.
The fundamentals of understanding how things work, that's just essential. But then beyond that, there's so much more, and that's where it gets into just a lot of the artistic side of like the creative approach of why you do something, not just how.
There's a lot of schools that just, you know, they focus on the technicality of recording music, but I wanted something that would foster creativity and really help me develop as an artist as well.
Each of our genre-specific programs comes in 4 levels. There's a basic, an advanced, a professional, and then a master's level. And the master's level is, of course, everything we do. It's the largest and most powerful programs that we can create for you.